Hi everyone, it's Jen at the library, and I am really excited to talk to you guys about spring. So, I have here some really neat things that I want to talk to you about at the library right now. One of them is, and we're almost out of these already, is the mini tomato pots, and I'm hoping we will be able to have some more seed kits come in soon, but they're really hard to find this year. If you want, these ones were from Home Hardware here in town. I also saw them at the co-op, and they're very inexpensive. They come with everything you need: pot, soil, seeds, just add water, and love and attention is helpful as well. The other thing I wanted to show you was how to use one of these seed starting kits with these are little peat moss soil pucks. And so I'm going to show you today how to use this. These are also available at your local hardware store, but they are getting hard to find. And then generally I just have some flower seeds. So we are going to try and grow these in our big bright window without grow lights, and hopefully we have enough sunlight in here to do it. And then lastly, I have these, which you can find here at the branch. The 2021 Garden Planner, which has everything you need in here to plan your 2021 garden. And I know if you're not someone who starts seeds, you're a greenhouse planter, or you just kind of throw everything in willy-nilly, I still encourage you to come in and grab one of these, because I can get this open here. There's calendars for each month, and I always find it really helpful year over year, even if you don't start anything in March. As you go through the year, you can write down how your progress is doing. You can write down temperatures of the weather, when you were able to work the soil. And I know it doesn't sound like very interesting data to take on, but year over year, if you're a gardener, it's actually really helpful. So I recommend, if you've never done a garden planner before, come in and ask me what it's about and take home yours today. We can do this every year into the future, so you'll have a whole collection by the time you're done. All right, let's get planting. All right, so I'm here at the table, and I'm going to show you how to use this starter greenhouse. Just any kind from the hardware store will do. There's no particular brand. You can get the ones that have the 6-pack trays in them without the little pucks. So you'll end up having rows of dirt-filled cells instead of these ones that are dehydrated, and that's just fine too. You just want to make sure that you're not picking straight up potting soil to fill those with. You really want to be picking out seed starting soil. The difference there is straight up potting soil is going to be heavier. It's really quite thick when it's watered down, and that really kind of inhibits root growth of your plants. So you want to be starting with a seed starting medium. You don't need to fertilize right off the bat, so don't stress about any of that. We just need to get the babies up and going. Okay, so a seed tray is going to consist of 3 parts. It is going to consist of your tray, which this one is actually a bit of a self-watering reservoir in the bottom here. If we take out some of the pucks, you see there's a reservoir to let water run through the whole thing. You never want to have standing water in the bottom, but it is helpful when you're watering that it is going to drain through the rest of your plants. So that is very helpful. So you're going to have a tray. It doesn't leak out to the bottom. That's very good. Something to hold dirt. Ours has the pucks. And then you're going to have one of these clear lids. And the clear lid is strictly just for seed starting, okay? So I often use these, I do double time with them. So I have them either under lights or in a sunny window just until the seeds germinate, because if you leave it on, it's going to hold moisture and it's going to rot your plant. So as soon as your little green heads are up, you're going to take this off and you're going to let your plants breathe a little bit better, okay? So, okay, on we go here. I have just a bowl of water, and this is kind of the boring part. You are going to take your dirt pucks here, and if you have potting soil, you're going to have to moisten it the same way. You won't need as much water. I'm literally going to drop these in here until they inflate. You don't want them to be like a wet sponge. If you squeeze them, you don't want to have water dripping out the bottom. You just want them to be nicely inflated and holding a bit of moisture, and that's going to help your seed from drying out right off the bat. Okay, I will get these all puffed up and then we'll come back. So when I talk about how wet they should be, here's one that's nicely and puffed up, I guess. You can see from the other ones here, that's where we started, and they're rock hard, and now they're nice and squishy. So if you squish this, you shouldn't have too much water squeeze out the bottom. And like some on the bottom here they are getting all puffed up. But like I'll show you one that's too wet, and with these it's kind of easy. This one at the bottom will be really wet because it on the bottom. So if you squeeze him, lots of water is going to come out. And I'm not squeezing super hard because I don't want to break the little netting that's around it. But you can squeeze pretty easily some of the water out so that it's not a sopping wet sponge of soil, because that's not going to grow anything but mold. So just nicely moist. Okay? Okay, so now that we've got our dirt worked out here and it looks beautiful and it's a lot heavier than it was, look at those. I want to show you guys the seeds. So I have two different kinds here that I'm going to be starting today. They're in the same family. One is Calendula, which I don't know if anybody knows, but it's actually an edible flower. You can use it to make salves, and it does have medicinal properties, which is really good. The other one is Marigold, which is in the same variety. This one, both of these can be used as a cut flower. You can use the leaves of this one for tea. You can use the petals of this one. It's really good. I suggest you do a little more research. But when and how do we plant these? So the trick when you are looking at your seeds is to check out the information on the back of the seed packet. And it's really, the brand you buy, it doesn't matter so much. Like these ones were purchased from Dollarama. Okay, 79-cent seed packs. They were 2 for $1, which is fabulous. I expect that they'll grow just the same as an expensive pack of seeds, but the information that you get on the back can be a little spotty depending on the company that you buy from. So the internet is really your best resource here about when to start your seeds. What you don't want to do, let's say I was planting zucchinis today. If I had started my zucchinis today and my last frost date is the end of May, I'm going to end up with these massive plants before I can plant them outside. And really what that's going to do is you're going to have so much root system that's developed in your plant cell that when you go to plant them outside, your plant's going to have some dieback and you're going to have some shock to treat. So it's really better to just know when how long it takes your plant to reach maturity. And if it's frost hardy, which these ones say right on the back, cold hardy to light frost. So it's great. These are a cool flower. And the marigold do a lot better in pots as well. So we're not worrying about too much of a root system. So if you have any questions about your seed variety and when you should plant, I recommend looking it up on the internet, or I have it kindly figured out for you in our garden journal if you want to just pick one up here. Just a little ad. Okay, let's get planting. So on the back of the Cracker Jack Marigold, you're going to find all the instructions that you need. So days of germination, 5 to 7 days. Get that in focus there. A thinning height. So basically that's how tall it is before you thin them out. So we're going to put 2 seeds per cell, and we're going to call these cells because they're kind of like soil packs, but in a different type of tray, they would be cells. So we'll put 2 seeds, which means you'll hopefully get 2 plants per cell, and you're going to end up trimming off the one that's not as healthy. And then when these get their second set of leaves or they get too big for this tray, we're going to pot them up into something bigger. All right. So, and I'll post a picture. These actually grow quite large. These are not the little border plants that you see at your greenhouse. These get to be a hedge. I planted them last year and it says 24 inches, but I got 3 feet off of these, and I'll post a picture. But they are really quite large. If you do stake them, because they kind of have a tendency to get large and windblown, but if you stake them up, they do have nice long straight branches that you can trim, and these last in a vase for 3-4 weeks almost. So really good cut flower too. Okay, Oh, also of note, it says on the back here that they are resistant to almost every pest and disease. That is true. Actually, marigolds are great to plant in your garden to keep ants away from your plants. So the trick here is, if you want to know if you have a pest in your garden, especially slugs, plant a marigold, because actually marigolds are one of the slugs, or snail. It's one of their favorite foods. So you will find out really quickly if you have a slug or snail problem if you plant marigolds, because these will be the first things to lose their leaves. So kind of like a canary in a coal mine. So just a interesting piece of information there. All right, let's get planting. So I will mention really quick while we're doing this that marigold seeds are quite large as far as seeds go. Sometimes you'll open a seed pack and there'll be like a little pack inside with little teeny tiny seeds. When it comes to sowing, which is planting a seed, when you sow for planting, it's not like stitching. Sorry, aside there. But when you sow your seed and it's really, really tiny, sometimes it can be really difficult to know if you've got 2, 5, 15 seeds into your cell. So sometimes you can like wet the end of a toothpick and then pick one up and put it in if you're really particular. I would say if you are dealing with a tiny flower seed, you know, snapdragons, even lettuce is pretty tiny. What you can do instead of using a tray with little seed cells like these, is you can either get ones with bigger cells so that you can kind of more broadcast, or just fill the tray itself with potting mix, not potting mix, but seed starting mix, and kind of open broadcast. And when your seedlings are up and they have their second set of leaves, then you can transplant out. So that is a video for another day, but I just wanted to let you know when you're dealing with small seeds, sometimes these pucks are not the best way to go because they do have kind of a narrow opening. They are quite, like, it's hard to, as you can see here, like I'm shoving my seed in, but it's kind of hard to get a good depth. And sometimes with those little teeny tiny seeds, they're just meant to be sowed right on the top of the dirt because they need high light exposure, which is why we're going with these two particular varieties today for this type of seed tray, because these are pretty hardy. You can generally throw them in anywhere and they are gonna grow. I always, when I have them in my garden and you have one that dies off, you can pluck the seeds out and just throw them right on the dirt, and you're kind of succession planting your marigolds. So they just keep on blooming. Okay, continuing on. Okay, so I have seeded now half the tray with marigolds, and because marigolds are prolific, they always put tons of seeds in the bag. So I have loads of seeds left over. If this happens to you and you're not sure what to do with them, it's really easy. You fold the top over and you find yourself a little container and you just save these for next year. They are good year over year. I actually pop mine in the fridge in the fall, one because it's temperature regulated, and two because lots of seeds, lots of different types of seeds prefer a cold period and not necessarily a -45 Saskatchewan winter, but just a nice little chill in the fridge. So I keep them in a sealed container in my fridge. I make sure it's breathable so we're not collecting moisture, because moisture will rot your seeds, which is why always save your seeds in paper, not plastic. And yeah, you might get a fairly decent germination rate out of this pack of seeds, providing that it's fresh when we bought it, for many years to come. Actually, some people save heirloom seeds, which are decades old. So just a little aside, keep your seeds. Don't throw them away. They're still good. And you will get tons of seeds. You might never have to buy a marigold packet again. You know, one plant, you're going to get an entire seed packet worth off of one flower. So you can essentially be a marigold farmer for life after this. So the next ones I'm going to do are the Calendula, which is in the same family. These ones have a completely different growth habit. They are self-seeding in your yard in a Saskatchewan winter. So while you might have a prolific amount of seeds to collect, these ones, if you don't cut all the bloom heads off at the end of the year, you might have these in your garden for, you know, the rest of time. So, and even sometimes the marigold, depending on the winter here, will self-seed itself, and you might have marigold startups in the spring. But these for sure. So if you are not prepared to cut them down after they bloom or save the seeds, then you might just see this as a self-seeding perennial for a few years until we have a really, really harsh winter. And it does depend on the variety, but I find they're generally pretty hardy. Okay, and I enjoy these seeds a lot. If you're grossed out by worms, maybe look away, but these seeds are so cool because they look like little dehydrated caterpillars. I'll try and get really close. And I think they're so neat, and they're big enough when you're working with kids, because you should always work with kids in the garden unless you bought expensive snapdragon seeds. Don't do that. But I really, really enjoy them because they can pick up these, and they're kind of fun. Well, if you hard to hold on to, but they're fun to kind of touch and look at for a sensory perspective with your kids. And they're not super expensive, so be prepared to lose a few. So I love it. All right. Let's get planting. Okay, so I wanted to let you guys know that in a perfect world, you'd be able to push the seeds down to the desired depth with your finger, but these little pods are a little bit harder. There is an actual tool, and it's called a dibbler, and some kits that you get have a dibbler included, and it's essentially a stick that you push seeds down into the soil with, and it has like a little measure on it so that you can do 1/2 inch, 1/4 inch, etc. I'm going to use the end of my pair of scissors because that's what I've got, and we're just going to make do. So here we go. All right, now that you got your seeds in the tray, there's something you need to know. Don't forget to mark them, because when they come up, all of your seed babies are going to look identical no matter what you plant. They're going to come up with a set of brand new baby leaves, and they're not going to be true leaves, so you're going to have a hard time identifying your plants. And if you're not really experienced with what you're planting, you might not know, and yes, you will forget. I do it every year. I forget to mark a tray, and then I'm like, I'll remember. It'll be fine. I know what they look like. No, I have no idea. So here's a tip. I've got 2 different types of sticks. So this is just a popsicle stick, and you might think that this is a really convenient idea for marking. You just put a Sharpie note on there, what type of seed it is. I don't recommend using a popsicle stick. If it's all you've got, great, give it a go. But once these get wet, they take in water and they start to mold. And not to mention your marker will start to bleed out as soon as these get wet. So I find a popsicle stick not the greatest, but if it's all you got, it's all you got. I actually prefer Le Fork. These are fantastic, and you can cut them in half, and you can get 2 markers out if you can write really small on the fork end. But these are even good outside in your garden, and you can reuse them. You don't just have to toss them at the end of the year. You can scrub off the Sharpie and off you go. Another use for a plastic fork. Knives work too, and spoons. Who knew? Okay, I'm out. The last thing you need to know is how to water your plants before they're germinated. If you were to take a watering can in here, two things would happen. If they're really small seeds, you're going to dislodge them and they're going to float somewhere, or you're going to overwater because it's a watering can. It's really hard to control, and you don't want too much water. Too much moisture in here is going to mean rot and mold and fungus and all the things that are going to inhibit your seed growth. So now that we've got them planted, even though we soaked our soil, what we're going to do is we're going to settle the seeds in with a spray bottle. Okay, now the smaller the seed, the finer the mist you're going to want to use, because if you use the jet stream on a really teeny tiny little seed, you're going to blow it away. So we're just going to use, I'll make sure it's set to the misty one, and we're going to give them a good misting in on the tops with just plain water, no fertilizer yet. You don't want to fertilize your seeds, even with a seed starting fertilizer, until they have their second set of leaves, which is their true set. So you'll notice when they come up, they're going to have a very generic leaf. They're all just going to look like little green seedlings. And then the next set of leaves that come afterwards are going to have some shape to them. And marigolds and calendula have very different leaves. So we'll be able to show you that in another video. Okay. Now earlier, there you go. Done. And as you can see, I've got my plastic markers in here. This side's marigold, this side calendula, and pretty self-explanatory. The lid will go on top just nicely. Earlier in the video, I said I do double duty with the tray when the seeds have germinated. So what's going to happen is these plants are going to grow and they're going to outgrow these little seed pods. And these are really great because when they do that, you just have to kind of rip the fabric and transplant them into a bigger pot or a bigger can. And so not all of these seeds or these starts are going to fit into one tray. So I just so happen to use this as a second tray when we pot them up to a bigger size. And you'll see that in another video. So like I said, you can get double duty out of the top. All right, so I'm going to pop these into a sunny window. If you have a grow light at home, what you're going to do, you're going to pop these on. Make sure these stay moist, not wet, until they're germinated. So you'll see some condensation on the top. You don't want them to be sopping wet. There's not an Amazon rainforest in here. If it looks like you've got too much moisture or you're starting to see white fungus growing on any of your pots, you're going to want to take this off, or you can even, you know, turn it to the side to give a little more ventilation. And just keep an eye on your moisture level. Pop these into a sunny window. If you've got grow lights, you're going to want them about 6 inches off the top until your seeds start to sprout for about 12 hours a day. All right, let's go pop these in the window. So the Carlyle library has these huge south-facing windows, and actually there was a time a while ago when the power went out in the middle of winter for more than a day, and it still stayed 20 degrees in here because these windows are huge. They get direct sunlight, and it's basically a greenhouse. So we've got our babies here. Because the light is coming in from a window and not from directly over top, you're going to want to rotate these every day once the seedlings come up, or they're going to reach for the window, and you want to keep them as, you know, straight up and down as possible. I will cover that in another video, but isn't that great? Spring is here, you guys. There's seeds in my window. I'm so excited. All right, take care. So that is it for our gardening start video. If you have any questions about seed starting, just give me a call, drop me an email, or stop in at the branch and I can answer anything. Also come by, pick up one of our garden planners for 2021, and I can show you how to hopefully have the most successful garden that you can this year. Okay,